Welcome back to our AMC Eagle identification series. This time we'll be talking about the different engines available in the Eagles. Now, there were three fairly common engines available in the Eagles, along with a fourth one, which I do not have pictures of, and I will only touch on very briefly. In fact, I'll start with that first very rare one. It was 1981, I believe, only, and it was a four-cylinder turbocharged diesel. Only a handful of Eagles were made with that engine. I believe it was a 2.1 liter, and it may have been produced by Renault. That I am not 100% sure. There's very little documentation on these cars. We will now move on to the first four-cylinder gas-powered engine available in Eagles. This was the GM 2.5 liter or 151 cubic inch Iron Duke. It was the same carbureted four-cylinder found in many GM products such as the Fiero and the S10s of the era. AMC ended up getting rid of it after the 1983 model year because they had developed their own four-cylinder that was more suitable to four-wheel drives. AMC's complaint with the 2.5 liter Iron Duke was that it did not have enough torque for the four-wheel drives that AMC was producing. This one here is actually an 82 AMC Spirit, which is the two-wheel drive counterpart of the Eagle SX4. Next up is the AMC 2.5 or 2.46 liter. It was carbureted in 1984 and 1985, and in 1986 it got a throttle body type fuel injection system, but it was only available in Eagles in 1984. It was also known as the Hurricane. I encourage you to pause the video here and read this sign, and later there's another sign. These are both associated with 2.5 liter AMC engines at the Kenosha History Center in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where the AMC and Jeep inline 4 and inline 6s were produced. Anybody going through Kenosha should really check out the History Center. Tons of AMC history in there. It is very much worth a visit. Now here we've got the very last AMC 2.5 liter, and here's that second sign I was telling you about. Chrysler used this engine until 2002, which really shows how well AMC designed this engine. Next up is the AMC 4.2 liter or 258 straight six. This was the only engine that was available in every year of production for the Eagle. The 1980s were a unique engine as they came with a stamped steel valve cover. 81 through 86 all had a hard plastic valve cover, and starting in 87 and through Jeep YJ production until 1990, they had an aluminum valve cover. Now, of course, Eagle production stopped in 88, so it would only be 87 and 88 Eagles that came with this valve cover. Going back to the 1980 Eagles, this year was also only available with the 258, the 3-speed automatic, and 3.08 gears. Now the engine shown here is a 1985 model, and it can easily be identified as an 81 to 86 because of the hard plastic valve cover. Now lots of people replace these with the aluminum valve cover because with age and heat cycles, this plastic gets brittle and breaks. Not to mention it has two bolts or two studs that come up through the valve cover with nuts that you tighten down on the top. Now, it's only supposed to be tightened to, I believe, 28 inch-pounds. Most people crank them down tighter than that because the gasket seeps and they break the valve cover. Because those valve covers are known to break, lots of people swap on an aluminum valve cover like what's shown here. In fact, this engine and the engine in the previous picture are in my Eagle, however they're not the same. My Eagle's in 86, the engine with the plastic valve covers in 85, and the engine pictured here is in 84. Now, From the factory, these used a Ford ignition system, and they had a Carter BBD feedback computer-controlled carburetor for emissions. Now, mine doesn't have that, as can be seen in these pictures. I have a Motorcraft 2150 with an adapter plate, which can be found online. It's a common upgrade for these CJs, along with a DUI, or Davis Unified Ignition, HEI-style distributor. Both of these added a lot of power to my car, and if your car doesn't have to pass emissions, I think it's a worthwhile upgrade. It may even pass emissions, but I don't know. It may depend on the state, too. From the factory, these 258s are supposed to be black. However, I didn't like that. I prefer AMC blue, so I went with a color very similar to that, and I have the specs of it right here. It is an acrylic enamel. I went with Omni brand because I like PPG products, and it is Mitsubishi Kawa blue. It is a metallic blue, very close to AMC blue, but it's it's considerably more common and pretty affordable.